We welcome you all. I am Timothy Kruglov, aviation management first-year student, and today we have a wonderful workshop about fundamentals of crew resource management with Claudio Santodirocco, Ryanair first officer. We would like to thank Mr. Santodirocco in advance for presentation and the speech he's going to give. And without further ado, I think I'm going to leave a stage for you, sir.
Okay. So good afternoon, I believe, to everybody. Okay, and thank you so much for a kind attendance to this brief but hopefully interesting discussion about CRM, first of all. And then I also want to say thank you to the IGU University to give me the privilege to host this seminar, in which I hope to share some of my experience and then also learn a lot from the interaction. I would love to have you guys, interact with me. I promise I won't talk too much from when it comes to the actual topic. I try to be brief and to give you a little bit of an introduction on the topic, which is absolutely growing in aviation in importance. And you'll be surprised, I believe, on how important it has become. I was surprised myself. So I have no shame on calling the CRM one of the most important revolution in modern aviation. Okay, so I promise I will keep it short so that we can discuss the topic or whichever else you guys want to be talking about. So something about myself. My name is Claudio Santodirocco. I am from Italy, from Florence. And I am in aviation now 12 years. I started in aviation 12 years ago. I'm 40 now, so I haven't started early. Okay, so this is a part of the story I would like to tell you because I believe it's something interesting for people who are getting into aviation. I started as a flight attendant in Barcelona. And then I started teaching, so I became a pilot, I became a flight instructor, and I've been teaching all around Europe. And my most significant experience has been actually with Turkish Airlines Cadet Pilot Program, which I was the team leader. I was the chief of the base in which we actually designed the Turkish Airline top cadet pilot program. So I have the privilege to know a lot of beautiful Turkish people. And I as I was saying before, I love the city of Istanbul, which I've been only a few years ago now. So I really wish to come back. So once again, welcome to you all. And I hope this will be interesting. Anytime, feel free to interrupt. If you have questions, let's try to have them at the end. And I also not too interested in getting in too much technical details because I know that you guys don't have different backgrounds. So we will try to keep the details at the minimum so that if you're interested, we can go through them now or better in another occasion in which we are sure that all of us, we share the same level of detail. Okay, so I hope this will be helpful for you guys. Okay. Right. So as I can see, nobody talks. So I will continue talking. Okay. And then if you team, if you see that somebody wants to say anything, you make sure that they can interact. Okay.
Of course.
Perfect. So once again, I welcome you all. I'll try to see if this presentation works. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, it's working, sir.
Perfect. All right, so the crew resource management, okay, it's a very big word. It's a very big name. I will try to give a brief introduction on the principle, the idea behind of this very, very important topic on aviation. All right, so it's a training program. Okay, it's developed to improve the communication and teamwork among aviation crew members. Now, teamwork is the key word here, right? Because as aviation becomes increasingly more complicated, either technically or from a legal point of view, it is absolutely important to make sure that everybody is in the loop. When I say everybody, I mean everybody, okay? From the check-in desk clerk in the airport, so the guy or the girl who is actually in the check-in, all the way to the captain, all the way to the ATC. Myself, when I realized the importance of this concept, I was amazed myself. And my company, the company which I work for now as an airline pilot since almost 2 years, they emphasize the concept in a very, very at very high level. I wouldn't expect that, but I'm glad they do, because it's really important. I experience this every single day. Okay, so for me, it's very important. So the CRM improves aviation safety, efficiency, and again, teamwork. Okay, so aviation safety, efficiency from every point of view, and the fact that we can actually work together, not only the pilots in the cockpit, but all the people involved work together with a single goal. Okay? So this is very important. It's not less important than actually knowing your procedures or the hydraulic system of your aircraft. It's really as much as important. So briefly, the CRM becomes important actually in the very beginning of the commercial era of aviation in the 70s, where the machines were becoming much, much more reliable, but also much more complicated. Because as you can imagine, the fact that the cockpit is so full of buttons and full of little switches is because the aircraft is becoming increasingly more safe. It has redundancy. Okay, so all the systems are there. At least they are there twice to make sure that actually the aircraft flying safely. So with redundancy comes complexity, and with complexity becomes the fact that you don't have to imagine the pilot, for example, as a single, maverick kind of a guy who knows everything, does everything, and then he, lands the airplane like a movie. No, it's completely another concept. So complexity makes the fact that you can't cope with everything, especially in a complex situation or an emergency alone. So it's vital that you know how to interact with the person right beside you. Okay. So here says I just wrote this detail. So it has been introduced in the 80s in the United States, and has been exponentially amplified and perfected, and on to the point of today is being used in many other fields of expertise and industries, from healthcare to sports, to ships, and many other fields and industries with success, hopefully. The key principles of the crew resource management are communication, situational awareness, decision making, and leadership. Right now, I can name at least another. I have them here. Another 15 other words and concepts related to CRM. I'm not going to do it now. I just chose the one that are more that they can include everything with the CRM means without being so long, because I can also say fatigue and vigilance. I can say personality awareness, self-assessment, critique, human performance, leadership, cooperation, delegation, coordination, so many. I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to keep myself on communication, situational awareness, decision making, and leadership. So those are the key principles which I think can include everything in the CRM. In fact, the CRM also emphasizes the importance of interpersonal skills, such as assertiveness, active listening, and conflict resolution. So forget about the maverick kind of pilot. Forget about it. If you want to fly safely in modern commercial aviation, this is very important. People from many fields of studies, as my audience today, will probably agree with me. If you don't, please let me know at the end of this presentation. So why we do this? Why we use it? So what are the benefits? What gives us? What does it give us? Well, it has dramatically reduced the number of accidents and incidents. Because, as a simple concept, the machines have become increasingly more complex, but also safe. So it turns out that quickly enough, in the development of the industry, experts have realized that actually humans, us pilots especially, but in a more sense, probably everybody involved in aviation, are the one responsible of 70% of the accidents that happen, not the machines. This is, on one sense, is good, because it means that we have built very reliable machines. So congratulations to engineers and designers, mechanics, physicists, all the people that work through the machine. But it also means that the factor that counts the most when it comes to emergency is the person, the pilot in this sense, who operate the flight in that specific moment. It also, so basically, why we do this? Well, to reduce the accidents, okay? Because we act upon the person, the pilot, to improve his capacity, effectiveness, and performance, so that to reduce even more the accidents. And then it improves efficiency, time management, resources, and the ability to make decisions in a standard and non-standard situations. My company is very famous, for example, to be able to dispatch an aircraft in a turnaround of 25 minutes. From when you land at your airport, from when you take off again to your base again. That amazes me, but it's only possible because of this work that has been put and the effort that everybody actually is being able to give when it comes to dispatch an aircraft, even in a normal operation. Now we try to to shift our view, imagine a camera that now goes directly in the cockpit. So how does a CRM act? How does a CRM develop in the cockpit? So it has become, as you might imagine, mandatory for all cockpit members, pilots, flight attendants, to have a course about CRM, the management of the crew resources, and it focuses on how to act when when a situation requires decision making in high pressure environment. Normal, I put emergencies and abnormal events, but I mean in every part of the operation. I really mean it. Okay, so in the cockpit, everybody has to be familiar with these concepts. Now, the camera goes direct into the engine of the aircraft, and you see that I really wanted to make sure that you understand that the CRM as a concept goes also when it comes to maintenance, engineering, and the crew that take care of the aircraft. Okay, so air traffic control as well. They absolutely have embraced the fact that their coordination is as important as the one in the cockpit to be able to deliver their very delicate service. Okay, so they monitor, as you know, ATC, they monitor and manage the movement of the aircraft. So they need to know exactly. They have to be aware of the human factor in their job. I had the chance and the privilege to be able to assist and to be a part of the air traffic controller training in FT Jerez in south of Spain, and we were training ATC students, and it was really interesting, and it was clear that they have very well known the fact that the CRM, the management of their own human factor was very, very important for their job, their stressful job, especially when it comes to communication. Communication is very, very important in all aviation, but especially when it comes to ATC, as you can imagine. Okay. So the CRM is a very complex topic, and it presents as everything challenges when it comes to implement, when it comes to lay down rules and the training for it. Okay, so here I just put a couple of concepts in which we can discuss later on if you want. So the main challenges is the resistance against changes among some aviation professionals. This is something very, very interesting and important. I have plenty of stories about this. Then later, if you want, we can discuss them. But basically, here it says that a person, especially with experience, they always tend to say, "Well, I'm the captain. We do as I say," which is completely different from the CRM concept. When the captain, yes, takes the last word and decides, but it does it having taken into consideration all the factors and having listened to everybody involved. It's very important. Also, experienced crew members, they tend to say, "Well, I've always done this way. Why should I change? I have 20,000 hours. Why would I have to change now?" Well, that's because you have to embrace the concept of manage everything around you if you want to make it safe. The amount of hours that a pilot has doesn't mean that he's always good or better than everybody else, or better than the people that they have less hours than him or less experience, right? I've been flying with captains that they've been, military pilots, and some of them were not so easy to convince or not so easy to approach. They established what they call cockpit gradient between me and them, and this is something detrimental, as you can imagine. But the great majority of guys, they really have understood the importance. So the more experience they get, the better they are in listening. For example, in my case, the first officer opinion. Okay. Also, there might be cultural barriers. So not only because of experience, but also because of cultural background, the effective communication and the teamwork can be somehow jeopardized. That doesn't have to happen. We try to standardize and to be standardized as a crew independently of our cultural background. Again, it's becoming less frequent, but it still happens. Okay, there's some culture in which the character of a captain being a captain, just because he has, the stripes, doesn't mean that he's always right. And again, guys that they have experienced, they have understood that is not really the case always. I have a story about this, so later if you want I can share about the importance of including your very inexperienced first officer in the discussion. It happened to me a few years ago when I was flying from Spain to England. Later, if you want, we can share this story. So, well, you might ask, okay, how do I train? How do I know what to do? Right? How do I become a person that is aware of the fact that improving myself towards the good CRM is vital for me? How do I do that? Well, being a very complex topic, here you have a range of ways that you can train. Okay, so you might have training in a classroom, simulator exercise, a lot of them I have realized myself, on the job training, in your line training, in your captain upgrade line training, in many ways. Actually, my company has introduced a CRM in every single level of training that we do. There is always a part that includes the CRM. So this made me understand how they understand the importance of this concept. And again, they continuously training you on this. Not only because the topic becomes, updates itself with new techniques, with new discoveries, with new theories, but also because it depends on which part of the chain of command or in which part of the actual aviation industry you are, you still have little details to make sure you understand, to be a part of the big family that takes the aircraft from A to B safely with 200 passengers on board. So you train always, continuously, in many different ways for CRM. I was interested into introduce this concept of how we measure the impact of the CRM because it might seem it happened to me to hear people saying, well, me as a company, me as an operator, why should I invest money? What is my return in terms of CRM? So why do I have to invest so much? Why don't you guys just train already with these concepts? it's not simple to actually show to the people that they manage money, to show how to measure the impact, how to measure the good impact of this training. Okay. Well, nowadays we have quite precise statistics, especially in the US and in Europe. There are precise statistics about accidents, incidents, reports, which show it's clear there that the CRM is improve the safety to a point in which a little course, a little message from the company to advise pilots of this or the importance of training themselves on this CRM, it saves life. So ultimately, it's about money as well. It's difficult to show businessmen how this is important. But when statistics come out and you see that good CRM, good situational awareness and communication save lives. So that's easy nowadays it's very easy to measure this impact, to be honest. And the second part involves the on-time performance and the customer experience. Because when everybody's on the same page, everybody's involved in their own role through this CRM, that's when you can manage to be on time and to give effective service to your customers, to the passengers, and to the general public. So this is also something that has been made clear through the years. And now there is no doubt that CRM is important and also is measurable and brings also, guess what, money. Airlines are not charities. That's fine. That's fine. But through the years, it's been now easy to show them that this kind of training is something that you have to invest on. So what's now? What's going to happen in the future? So the aviation is constantly evolving. New technologies, procedures, new theories, as I said before. CRM is a topic that can be adapted to many different technologies. Probably many of you already heard about the implementation of single pilot operation, right? And I don't think it's going to be possible in the foreseeable future, and I hope not, to be honest, from my point of view. But CRM is a topic that can be implemented in every situation. So it will be needed even there, okay, when you have a single pilot operation. There will be one day. Look. So here we are. Just gonna conclude this small presentation with a couple of insights. So effectiveness, efficiency in the last 40 years are undeniable. But is achieved through ongoing training, development, and continuous learning. So there is never a time to relax when it comes to CRM and safety. It benefits everybody. So I hope I could give you with this a little bit of idea on how this topic enters all the parts of aviation industry. And if you want to become part of this, or you are already part of this industry, this concept has to be crystal clear in your mind. So this is my idea, and this has been measured and has been demonstrated already. Again, my own experience as a pilot has benefited by my previous experience in my previous life, so to speak, as a human resource officer in a big company, in which I could see the importance of including people in the same loop. Especially, I want to make this sure. If we come from different background, and you have to cope with people with a culture that is different than yours, it doesn't mean that you have to abide to their rules. It means that there are common ground rules that if we both follow, or if we all follow on a common ground, they will lead you to be safe. Keeping your own culture, keeping your own personality, keeping your own sensibility. It's very important, because in working with, in the case of a pilot, working with the person on your left, on your right, it doesn't mean that you have to obey to their standards or change towards them. It means that you both agree on a single path which brings you efficiency and safety. Also, you know what to expect from them, and you are there to make sure that you get what you need. For example, a briefing is very expecting a certain briefing to a certain standard from the other crew that it's flying with you. It's something that you have to expect them and to require them to make a briefing about what's going to happen, to put you in the loop. Doesn't matter if you are very new, for example, and he's very experienced, or the difference of age, or many other different that they can be between people. You still expect them to put you in the loop. It's in your both mutual interest. Okay, this is what I wanted really to mean with this. Now, these case studies here I have just mentioned. Okay, it's food for thought for you guys. If you want, we can discuss them. But again, I don't want to get into much details. Okay, but they're very famous case studies. So in the United Airlines Flight 232, it happened very early in the era of modern aviation. And again, it has to do with the fact that crew didn't properly manage their own resources to cope with very abnormal situation, like a catastrophic engine failure. Okay, so even there are points in which you have to have a common ground to be able to cope with that. Right? For example, in this case, in my own experience, I was really amazed about how in real life emergencies actually develop. Okay? Recently, I've been to what they call resilience training in my airline, and it was really, really interesting. I have never, to be honest, it was my first time I was taking part of this very complex training. So you're put in a situation which is catastrophic, or impossible to solve, basically. And for the first time, for example, in my experience, I realized that in a situation of a very high stress, catastrophic situation, the first officer is the one who flies, and the captain has to cope with everything else. I didn't expect that. And when I saw how the actual CRM was shaping the situation, I was really happy to have that training, to make me understand how in those dynamics work. Okay. It is very important. It is of the highest levels of importance, the communication and the fact that everybody knows what they should do. irrespectively of their experience or of their feelings or all the other, personal feeling at that moment. You might be terrified, but you know what to do. And you expect the other person to do exactly what they have to do. And the result will arrive. I was amazed myself, to be honest, on how this works so nicely. So this is basically what happened in this case study. Then I have another one which is very famous as well. It's the Air France flight 447, in which it's a very school case because it involves CRM, it involves upset recovery and awareness and basic flying skills. So this case, if you're not familiar, please go through the reports of Air France Flight 447. There are also plenty of documentaries about these accidents. Of course, and this is my last note, unfortunately in aviation, many big changes, including CRM, have been introduced after big tragedies. So this Air France flight 447, unfortunately, costed 228 people lives. But it was crucial in how the tragedy has developed, crucial for the future training of pilots. It's probably the case I name and I use the most, because when I was when I'm teaching, when I'm instructing the basic flight skills, we always talk about manual flying, stall awareness, and all these concepts are coming after this tragedy. So unfortunately, it's known that in aviation, unfortunately, many revolutions and many improvements cost human lives. So this is the end of the presentation. Now I would like to talk with you about all the topics that we have been through. And if you are interested in anything, we can continue the discussion. So I'm more than happy to answer questions or discuss anything you guys would propose me about this topic. Here, as you can see, I like always to put some references for you to be able to actually go through the sources of the information if you're interested. And for anything, please let me know. So thank you so much. Now I hope that we can have a discussion.
Okay, Mr. Santodirocco, I have a few questions to ask from myself. You said that crew resource management is like training for the whole life, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're training for the whole life. Have you experienced yourself a teammate, someone who were in the same crew as you, who didn't want to change?
This is a very good question. You know why? Because when you work in a big airline or in a modern environment, because I've been also working for a very small company, and that's another story. But in a big company, it's tricky because, in my case, it was a captain. He would never tell you, no, I'm not gonna do it because I'm the captain. They don't tell you, right? But they clearly use their authority upon you, so that they look at you or they create an environment in the cockpit so that you are not there to help. Okay? So they would never tell you, no, I'm not going to abide to the CRM. They will tell you, by the way, this is our takeoff weight. And I'm like, sir, we haven't checked it. No, but I know, no worries, let's go ahead. Right? So, or for example, in my case, there was this, we had this situation. We were in a line check. So you are stressed because there is an examiner, a line checker examiner, that is checking on you, right? So in our company, we have a very nice way of starting our briefings, okay? It's called T&M. So threat and error management. This is a crucial part of the CRM. So what you do is you make aware the other pilot on what you think we have as a threat for the day, which error we can make with this threat, and how do we manage. Okay? An example is, I had it yesterday. So we were about to take off, and the weather report says we have wind shear. Right? So you discuss with your captain, say, look, we have wind shear, threat, error. We might encounter a wind shear, and then we might have an accident. So how do we manage? Okay, so we have a certain engine setting to put. We can revise the wind shear escape maneuver as a manual flight, and then we stay ahead with the communication, and we always ask for a preview to the ATC if they have reports. Okay, so threat, error, how to manage, right? So we have a mandatory rule that every briefing starts with that. Threat, error, management. So that day, my captain goes, okay, Claudio, so we start our briefing today, okay? So no threats for the day, rule check. It's already not good. Because even if there is the case in which you don't see any threat yourself, it's your job to ask the other pilot actively. Okay, this is a very, very good example of CRM. Say, I don't see any threat for the day. To me, everything is good. Sunshine, no problem. Right? Although I have this feeling myself, it's my job to ask the other pilot, hey, Tim, do you see any threats today? And he, in this case you, might say, yes, sir, I've seen birds in the runway, or I've heard in the radio that there is, any kind of threat. Thank you. So let's discuss how to manage this and which kind of error do we have. So you never go to everything and go, no threats for the day, rule check. No. This is not the way. You involve the other person. The correct way would have been to say, Claudio, I don't see any threats, do you? No, sir. Okay, good. Let's continue. You know what I mean? So they would never tell you, no, I don't go with the rules. But they actively put you out of the loop. This happens, unfortunately, even nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. It was very interesting. Also, Berkay Han is asking in the chat, how does the automation of the flight controls and aircrafts affect to the SRM, and do the flight crew are less responsible according to the CRM?
Very interesting question as well. Thank you for this. Well, the automation is a big threat itself. So, as everything which has made a huge advance in aviation, as you can imagine, automation also becomes a threat. I will give an example now in a second on how that can be a huge threat and how do we manage in a CRM way, if you pass me the term. So how the CRM has designed their training not to happen, not this failure to happen. So I was the sim, with a very expert pilot. The guy is a trainer, is a head of training, has been head of training in many companies, and now they joined my company. He has joined my company as a, I don't remember exactly his position, but he has a position in the training department. So he was nice with us because he shared experience. So we were talking about engaging the autopilot, okay? Right. So all the all the procedure, they want you to engage autopilot in a certain way. So I don't know if you're familiar, but so engaging the autopilot means just clicking one button, right? Now, you as a pilot, when you engage the autopilot, you as a pilot flying, you engage autopilot, so you do engage it, and then you call it out, and you say, command B. Okay, this is the way in the 737 we engage autopilot. We say, command B. But there's a huge difference if I say, command B, and then I click the button, or, as I should click the button, look at what the aircraft is doing through my FMA, so my screen, and then call it when it is engaged. So it might seem like a stupid detail, right? But actually the guy was sharing this story with us, and this is very important. So once they were taking off from Jeddah, I think, in a night flight, a cargo operation. So the captain was flying. He said he took off. Okay? Nice. Chilly day, nice night was. So weather was good, all good. So they took off, what was that? 2 a.m. Okay? So they take off. Captain is like, you know what? I'm tired, so I will engage the autopilot as quickly as possible. I don't feel like hand flying. Fine. So at the minimum altitude, he's flying. And the departure that they were about to take has a, not steep, but he has a prominent right turn. Okay? So he takes off. 500 feet above the ground, he starts the turn, slightly to the right. Starting the turn, he says, command B, sorry, in this case it was captain, so command A, so he says, and then he clicks the button. Immediately after, he started chatting with the first officer, probably about vacation, cars, whatever. You might chat with your colleague. Okay, so he turns, says command A, click, and then he goes blah blah, and starts talking. Now, after a little bit, first officer goes, wow, what? And takes the aircraft back again. So what was happening? That instead of calling the engagement of the autopilot when he was sure that the actual autopilot was engaged, because the autopilot at that point wasn't engaged, the turn has inhibited the autopilot to engage. Because normally, basic autopilot engage when there are no forces on the controls. So when the aircraft is perfectly trimmed, you're able to engage the autopilot. Probably at that point, he didn't completely trim the airplane, so the autopilot didn't engage. So the plane was actually continuing the turn, almost crashing. He assumed, and he called without actually looking. So he was fully reliant on the automation, and he didn't use the proper CRM and multi-crew coordination. He should have turned, clicked the button. When the aircraft actually said command B, in this case, command A, then he should have called. And then he could have safely removed his hands from the control and just monitor what the aircraft was doing. So he, by announcing the engagement of the autopilot misled also the first officer, who was able actually at a certain point to realize what was happening and actually save the day. So it was a little detail that makes you understand how the CRM and the automation, the reliance on the automation can really change your life, save your life. Yeah.
Such a little detail and such a major consequences.
Yeah.
Also, we have a question from Yaranimchi. I would like to hear more about your past experiences on this topic.
So, you mean in the CRM or in aviation in general?
I think more about the CRM and aviation, both. Yes.
So, talking about CRM, the ones among you guys that are into the pilot training, they have realized one very important thing. When you're in training and you learn how to fly, you fly as a single pilot. Okay, so it's called single pilot operation, and you are the full responsible of what the aircraft is doing. So even as an instructor, I sit to your right. You are the one who flies. Okay? So you are the one who's responsible for navigation, so vertical navigation, lateral navigation, performance, and safe delivery of the flight. Okay. So it's very important because although I stressed the importance of the CRM, in all your first part of the training, you are not trained on that at all. Because you're taught on how to fly the airplane. So you fly the airplane and you, as the sole responsible. So you are the one actually responsible and acting on anything the aircraft is doing. So once you have the skills to fly the airplane, and when you join and you make the step to go to commercial aviation after your training, you have zero knowledge about the CRM. Not only zero knowledge, I mean, you might have heard, you might have studied it, but you have never experienced on how to manage the flight with another person. And I want to be honest with you, that's after you've learned on how the airplane stays in the air and how to get from A to B, learning on how to manage the airplane with another person is the next most difficult thing you can imagine. Especially because you have to take into account that there is another person fully responsible as you are. So you cannot do whatever you feel like doing. You have to abide to some certain rules, which at the beginning you don't like. You hate, because come on, I mean, I'm the pilot flying. Why I cannot? Because when you work with another person, normally the flights is divided in two pilots as usual. So you have pilot flying, pilot monitoring. The pilot flying is not necessarily the captain, and the pilot flying is the one responsible of that flight. So in general, for example, in our company, if we do two sectors, first officer starts as a pilot flying, and he is the full responsible of that flight, fully. He is the one responsible of the vertical navigation of the airplane, and he has to delegate to the other pilot the lateral navigation of the airplane. So if you're given a shortcut from the ATC, is when you have to think about that you are the one responsible, but you're not going to be the one acting on the airplane to change your flight path, in this sense. So this change of mind, from when you start your training to that point, is really the single, I think, and to me it was, the single most difficult thing that you can do or learn. Even more than the flying skills of a big 70-ton jet or all the complexity of the systems. Because the skill of being able to interact with the other person is something you cannot study at home only. You have to experience as well. And because, as you know, when there is something that stresses you, okay, so you have a change in your flight path, you are given, for example, a shortcut, and you are, for example, now high on profile, and you have to manage your flight path. You are the one responsible, but you're not the one acting on the flight computer. So you need to know what you want, and you need to be able to communicate with the other person in a professional, efficient way, so he does exactly what you tell them to do. Because this is what he expects you to do. You know what I mean? Even if you are sitting, for example, to the right, and you're talking with a, 40,000 hours pilot, you have to tell them exactly what you do, what you want them to do. You know what I mean? So, believe me, the CRM in my career has been the single most difficult thing to do, especially because I came into commercial aviation with a lot of previous experience as a single pilot. When you come into a multi-pilot environment with a CRM implementation, that's the single most difficult thing I have experienced myself after.
I love how, in the end, everything relates on the communication, whatever you do. Yaren saying, thank you, sir, for brilliant information. So the next question will be from Mahmoud. He's saying, thank you, sir, for this workshop. Yes, thank you for coming today. So how can we keep our situational awareness at the best, and how to eliminate the distractions which can affect to the flight safety at the cockpit?
So, first of all, I want to say that these are skills among the most important skills that you develop as a person and a pilot. Okay? So, from my personal experience, it comes to, as everything which is complex, it comes to a breakdown of different skills that come together. Okay? So, in order to have situational awareness, there is one single thing that you need to have in order to develop situational awareness, and that is brain capacity. Okay? So, give you an example. Probably, I don't know if the person who made the question drives. So, if you drive a car, right? You start, when you take your license, you start driving, and you are overwhelmed with everything that becomes around you. Okay, traffic, roads, traffic light, people that cross, whatever. With experience, the more you drive, what happens? You know how the car works, and you can operate the car without thinking on which lever you're touching, how to use the pedals. You don't think about it. So all this capacity that you free, then now goes outside in the city, for example, and now you are able to read the signals, to respect the rules, to avoid people that comes into your way. So this is how you free your brain capacity. In the aircraft is exactly the same, except that it's much more complicated. So the first thing you need to do is you need to study as much as you can and to learn as quickly as possible all the operational procedures, the aircraft system, and the rules in general, okay, that are involved in your operation. You have to know them very well before even sitting in the cockpit. Once in the cockpit, well, then you have to be patient with yourself. You have to allow yourself time to develop time to use your skills to make the operation of the aircraft less heavy for your brain. Only there, it's when you can look outside and being able. This is also why we have two of us in the cockpit, because sometimes the mere operation of the airplane is so busy and complicated that you're not situational aware of what happened outside. So normally the more experienced pilot, the one, in this case, the one to the left, the captain, he is a captain because he has developed a certain automatic way on operate the aircraft so that he actually he has brain capacity to manage all the rest. Okay, so be situational aware. To know if there is an airplane coming from the taxiway, if the passenger is sick, or if the flight plan is expiring, if your cargo is correctly stowed, if the destination airport is able to accept your flight. Many different million probably things that he is able to do, and he needs your help when you are to the right as a first officer in this case. Because the full situational awareness is something that you have to allow yourself to improve only if your knowledge is good. So your knowledge is good. Now you look outside and you help the other person to be situational aware. This is why there is two of us. So it takes time. This is what I meant. Okay, it takes a huge amount of skill and time. I don't know if I was clear, but it's a complex thing. Situational awareness is something that you read everywhere, but it's very difficult to break it down. And it takes really a lot of time to actually have it. And it's also very difficult, very easy to break. If that day you are tired, you lose 30% of the situational awareness, only because you slept 1 hour less. You know what I mean? This is when also the human factor comes in. You can be the best pilot in the world, but if the previous day you had a problem in your, problem in your personal life, that will affect your situational awareness straight away. I don't know if I was clear.
Yes, it was clear. Thank you for your answer. Thank you. So the next question will be from Haula. First, I would like to thank you for sharing your valuable experience and precious information, as it will help us.
My pleasure, guys.
So the question is, I would like to ask you, how much does psychological wellness affect CRM?
A lot. I'm not going to give you a number, but if I was to guess on how psychological wellness affects, I would say easily above 60-70%. So it's a huge amount of repercussion that your personal life has in the cockpit. In the presentation which I meant to give at the beginning, this is why I prepared a series of this presentation. So if you guys are interested, I'll be more than happy to go through all these parts more in detail. But in a nutshell, what I want to say is that your psychological wellness, well-being, your ability to not bring your own personal stress into the cabin is crucial. It happened to me that my personal life was being overwhelming and I wasn't feeling fully aware and fully fit to fly. Okay, So I went to my base captain and I told him, say, look, because of this that happens in my life, I am not able to deliver a flight in proper condition. So he came to me and he said, yeah, that's a good decision. So we sat together and then we decided a correct way of addressing my own situation. Obviously, he wouldn't tell me what to do in my personal life, but he would tell me, say, look, how do you think the time off will help you? I said, yes, time off is important. It was important. And so we agreed on a certain period of time in which I wasn't flying. Okay. But then he made sure, so to speak, that I was using that time to actually recover. So with this little story about me, I want to say that the personal psychological wellness is your own and sole responsibility. Okay. Problems and stress will happen. For sure. Happens to everybody. Okay. So it will happen. It's up to you on how you react. So the moment that you feel that you're operating a 70-ton aircraft with 200 people on board is not your full priority at that moment, or your mind is not ready and fit for the operation, is your own responsibility to tell in this case, your boss or whoever, that you're not fit to fly. So it's personal critique and self-assessment then plays the role, the most important role. This is why you need to be a pilot or to be a person who's responsible of other people's lives. Is your absolute responsibility to make sure you can fly. So it takes a lot of self-critique and maturity. And no shame. Right? No shame. This is what the base captain told me. So then, as again, my responsibility was to take time off and use the time wisely. Rest, study, fix my own stuff, my personal stuff. And then when I come back again, I make sure I can fly. I'm fit to fly.
Thank you so much for your answer. The another question is also from Haula. Should checking for hazards and risks be done by a human being for much more efficiency and avoiding mistakes than relying on AI? As we know, everything is getting advanced.
Very, very good question. I was thinking about this recently. Okay, so would be AI capable of assessing the risks to do the famous TEM, terror management? Yes and no, as usual. So yes, because a sophisticated artificial intelligence is perfectly able to point you to the direction of certain threats, for example. Let's make an example. If there is a certain departure that day, okay? I'm departing from the airport of Brussels in Belgium, or from Sweden, or from Ireland, or from Greece, or Africa, wherever you want. So that day, there is, for example, on the way on your departure, there is a mountain. So your departure requires a certain climb gradient, and you have to make sure you comply. So if that's a threat, the artificial intelligence is perfectly able to tell you, look, you have this threat. The error that can be, derived from this is that you might have a ground collision. The management is choose another departure, choose a certain engine setting so that you can achieve that gradient, or change the runway, for example. Good. Perfect. Job done perfectly by the AI. But say that day I personally feel that the fact that I'm tired, we're departing, for example, by night, it's raining, there is the weather in front of us, for example, on the departure. It's me that I feel that threat. No computer feels it. I feel it. I say, look, I would go to the captain and say, Captain, look, I feel tired, and I think that the weather and that is in front of us can be a threat for my departure. Okay? So the way I would do it, I would, for example, make sure that we depart, and you tell me when we pass 1,000 feet above the ground, you make sure and you call the turn out loud. And you would say, okay, thank you. So that I feel myself, that there is a threat that involves me, because again, as I told you before, the human is the one who represents the threat, the main threat. So no computer can assess your own ability to cope with that threat. And it's up to you to put the other person in the loop and to tell him, so look, please, help me on this, or tell me this, or please contact ATC and tell them that as soon as we depart, we want Vector to avoid the weather. No AI at the moment is able to assess my own perception of a threat. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was saying that, again, because the human is the one that makes the most mistakes, has to be still, unfortunately, still the human is the one that has to know how to manage. Or, yeah, AI helps when it comes to a certain verified threats. Or, for example, another threat is typically when you go to a new airport. So your approach is made on a runway you're not familiar. And because it might be, for example, I don't know, shorter than the runway that is in your home base, it might look shorter, and narrower. So your perception, especially at night, changes in a way that no computer can still assess. It has to be you knowing your limit as a human being to cope with that.
So for now, AI is not good enough, right?
It's very good. It's very good, absolutely. But the way is a fantastic tool, right? Which can help you in a big variety of situations. But again, because you're gonna be the one flying, all your limits as a human being in perception, in reaction, in quick decision making, okay? These are three typical areas in which the human is the one that takes control. Not only you are the one responsible, but you are the only one acknowledging how you can be affected by them. Possibly later AI will help. I don't know.
Thank you for the answer. And so we have the last question.
Yeah.
From Ibrahima. How can we keep the integrity of the CRM in the cockpit if the other pilot is trying to make mobbing or create arguments?
Very, very nice question. And this is another question that AI won't answer at the moment. So, first of all, I have to say that these cases are becoming more and more rare. People are professionals. We're talking about professionals, talking about people that you will be working with in a airline environment. They are aware. So it's very rare, the case in which they don't comply. Okay. So if as a professional you are not, for example, it happened to me that I was having an argument. I wouldn't say an argument as you might think of. It's a discussion that you have with the other person, and somehow you feel that discussion has made your communication with your person a little bit cold. I don't know if you are familiar with the situation in which you start talking with a person, and then you start diverging in opinions, and then you don't feel like talking too much. I don't know if you have this idea. So a good professional should still do two things: avoiding discussions and over talking in flight, and leave everything on the ground when you do a debriefing, okay, and then still abide to your job. So even though the other person is not your best friend anymore, you still have to fly the same way. Okay, so this is professionalism. Is when you're professional, this is what you do. So when it happens that people deviate because of this, so you start deviating from your professionalism. It happened. So when it's clear that happens, then it's your responsibility to say, look, I know we had an argument. I know. Let's talk to this on the ground, and let's continue with the flight. Obviously, this is something that should be known, right? But if you make that clear, you are assertive on this, the other person will understand that you are now acknowledging the fact that if the CRM is not perfect anymore, that might really jeopardize the flight itself. Especially because, as you can imagine, when you fly, normally the last part of the flight is the approach and the landing, the most difficult part. So it happened to me, and I said, look, it was, imagine, let's call it Johnny. Look, Captain Johnny, let's talk this on the ground, you mind? And let's just finish. He was fine. So I was like, please tell me anything you need. Let's make this approach correct, and then we discuss. I phrased it. I told them so that it was clear that I wanted to rebalance the situation to a professional level. Okay. At that point, he understood that my concern was now shifting from our argument to the actual flight. You know what I mean? And that was enough. So this is my personal experience. Okay. But after, especially what happened in the, in the many accidents and stuff, when the cockpit gradient is high, then there has been disasters. Many people will understand. So I don't have a proper, way of. The airline is clear. The airline tells you have to abide to your job, and you have to tell them assertively. Yeah. In real life, it's just upon your ability to get the tone down and to tell them your concern. They will understand.
Thank you so much, Mr. Santodirocco. It was wonderful, and it was very valuable and interesting to listen to every single question you answered, for the speech, for the presentation. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And for anything, you can find me on the email and on LinkedIn. Any question you might have, I'll be more than happy to to answer or to continue with this series of presentations.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's workshop, and see you in the next events.
Perfect. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Tamam, kapıyı kapat.